And welcome back, folks, to this edition of the Hagman and Hagman Report. Buckle up, because we have got really a newsmaker. Somebody that's really on fire with respect to providing information about the workings of the deep state, the stuff that's going on to turn our constitutional republic into this third world banana republic by way of people like Barack Che Guevara Obama and his minions and the Clintons and everyone else, and of course what the forces that are acting against Trump. A man that really needs no introduction. He's got a resume, an intense resume, but you've heard. He's been on our show before. Robert David Steele, robertdavidsteele.com. A link is in our program description to his website, and I would definitely, if you do nothing else, purchase his Kindle Shorts. That almost sounds like I'm talking about his tidy whities. I'm not. Okay, go to Amazon.com and look up Robert David Steele. He's got some excellent Kindle Shorts there, meaning short novellas. That's a wrong word, but short writings. And support this guy. This guy is doing more, I think, for the pro-Trump, pro-Republic, pro-freedom movement than most people really realize. Before we get to him, I just want to mention portions of this broadcast brought to you by healthmasters.com. You want a great nutritional supplement, healthmasters.com has got it. I would, look, don't take anything else. Buy your ultimate multiple from Health Masters. That's healthmasters.com. They've got the Cortisol Buster, brand new product there. They've got vitamin B, C, and the vitamin Bs are something I took. I was on Coast last night, and I was feeling kind of, so I took 4 Bs. I think it was 4 B tablets during the show last night. Man, I was awake. I was solid awake through 3 o'clock, 3:30 this morning. It was just incredible. So healthmasters.com, use the coupon code Doug5. It's Doug5. I'm not sure how much longer that's going to last. So healthmasters.com, Doug5. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, Robert David Steele is our guest, and if you've been paying attention to the alternative media, he's been doing a lot of interviews lately and sharing a lot of important information. Mr. Steele, it's great to have you back on the show.
Oh, I hope you guys will call me Robert. My dad is Mr. Steele.
All right, Robert. Now, it's been a while since, or it's been a number of weeks since you've been on our show. If you don't mind, fill us in on what's happened, if you can, to the extent you can. Fill us in on what's happened.
Absolutely.
All right.
As best I can tell, at least 1 million people have read the memorandum, and it's going all over the place. And I want to bless those people that have sent me donations, because it turns out that 20,000 to 30,000 people visiting my website crashes it. So we put several $100s into upgrading the bandwidth and the data. And so the attention that you've sent my way has also come with donations. So God bless you all. Here's the bottom line. I have spoken to some people who have some inside access at the White House, and I also listened to John Bannon talk today at CPAC. And what's become clear to me is that Donald Trump has received the memo. Steve Bannon and Reince Priebus have the memo. Of course, Priebus got it in mid-December and refused to deliver it to the president. But what has become clear from Bannon's public statements and from my insiders who got me a readout is that Steve Bannon is under the delusion that he won this election for Donald Trump, and that the only people that matter are the white people that voted for Donald Trump, and that he can safely ignore the 73% that did not vote for Donald Trump. So what Bannon has told Trump is, you can ignore Steele, you can ignore this memorandum, just fulfill your promises to the 27% that voted for you. The Republican Party will be fine, you will be fine. Most humbly and respectfully, I think Steve Bannon is not only wrong, he is going to destroy Donald Trump.
Wow. Yeah, I think that's kind of a miscalculation if you're going to depend just on that small percentage. When I say small percentage, of course, that's relative to the bigger picture. But wow.
And we have CPAC going on now, and there's headlines about Bannon. I think one of them from the Hill said Bannon shows his softer side at CPAC.
I think they all do, though, at that.
Well, he also
Sweetness.
showed his fatter side. It looked to me like he was really stretching out there.
Yeah.
This is not a healthy man, and I'm concerned for his health. What I am seeing is some real self-delusion, and I don't think Donald Trump shares those delusions. I think Donald Trump knows very well. In fact, Donald Trump has probably done something Steve Bannon has not done, which is read my Donald Trump Accidental President under Sage. And by the way, for your listeners, please be assured, everything I offer on Kindle is also free online. So you can either buy it on Kindle if you like Kindle, or you can just look up the title in one of the search engines and you'll get to it free online. But My Accidental President explains precisely how Donald Trump won by accident.
Right.
And I think it's absolutely vital that Donald Trump fulfill the promises that he made. I mean, I love every promise he made. However, he is under attack from three different groups. And I outlined in the memo for Trump that I think it's going toward 2 million reading it this week. In fact, there's now a really cool Google graphic, or not Google graphic, but there's a really nice graphic with Uncle Sam saying, I want you to read this memo. And it's going viral, and people are even talking about turning it into yard signs and putting it in the back of their car. So this is great. I mean, I've never been part of something like this. I've always been anonymous and marginalized off to the side. But the bottom line here is Donald Trump is being attacked by three different groups. And this attack is going to begin in earnest with Berkeley-like violence when the weather gets warm at the end of March.
I agree.
And that's...
Yeah. And okay, let's talk about this. Let's spend some time on this, if you don't mind, because
I've your hands.
Man, I'll tell you something. I have never on one side you've got Organizing for Action, the third iteration of Obama's Organizing for America, and all that encompasses. Then you've got Millennials for Revolution. You've got the Resist Fascism. All these subgroups. All these.
Well, you've got $48 million worth of George Soros funded activities, including the new one that just rolled out, #Resist,
Yep.
from MoveOn.org.
Yep. Okay. And then, that's the chaotic realm. Then over on the other side, you've got the lawfare side, where what is that group? United to Protect Democracy. The $1.5 million initiative of the insiders of Obama, the Obama insider attorneys, who are setting up shop in D.C. to throw lawsuit after lawsuit against Trump and to gum up the works there. So, but getting back to the chaotic side, you're seeing this, as you point out, the Soros-funded, Tides organization-funded groups. I have no doubt in my mind that things are going to get violent this summer and spring.
Well, let me sum it up for your listeners, because really, in the memo I identify three knives in Donald Trump's heart. The first one is the extreme left and the mainstream media, which is already starting to talk about impeachment and treason. The official narrative is out there, and there's basically absolute planning to impeach Donald Trump. And the mainstream media is going to be singing this song for the next few months. Track two is the extreme right under Dick Cheney, who's doing everything to hijack the Trump presidency and put his people into power and essentially undermine Trump in every possible way. And then track three is the deep state, which is actually the CIA, the NSA, and all of the people who are manufacturing evidence against Donald Trump. I'm extremely concerned. I was one of the people who beat back the lies by John Brennan with respect to the Russians hacking the election. I think we have only begun to see the evil that is going to come out of CIA and NSA against Trump. And so those three things are coming to a head. But the one that really concerns me, the one where the weather matters and the timing matters, is Berkeley times 1,000. You all saw what Berkeley looked like, okay? Berkeley was not only violence with people dressed in black wearing hoodies, but it was law enforcement officers ordered to stand down. The governors are not Donald Trump's friend. The governors are part of the establishment. They're part of the two-party tyranny. And I'm really very upset with Priebus, because had he done his job in faith to Donald Trump, in mid-December he would have given the president-elect the memo, and Trump would have squelched all of this on Inauguration Day by announcing, I'm an accidental president, I'm a fringe president, the system is rigged, my first order of business is to unrig the system and bring every American into the tent of democracy. He didn't do that because Priebus didn't deliver the memo. And now Bannon is telling him you don't need an Electoral Reform Act. You don't need Cynthia McKinney and Dennis Kucinich to appeal to the people of color and to the left. You don't need to listen to Robert Steele. I got this, Donald. Just leave it in my hands. Well, I'm sorry, but if Donald Trump leaves this in Steve Bannon's hands, Donald Trump will not finish out his term.
Yeah, I'm afraid you're right. And I heard you on Greg Hunter. I heard you as well on InfoWars and others. You've really been saying a lot of this.
You started this. I will never forget that you started this.
Well, we'll gladly take the blame for this, but so okay, where do we go from here? Because you have really laid out some great stuff, and I was talking to John, our producer, John Robertson, God bless him. I was talking to him today, and we were talking about this very issue, and you can't, we cannot. You can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. There's only so much we can do. So, all right, I'm very concerned about your statement too, and I feel the same way. That I don't think if things don't change, Donald Trump will not finish his term. So, but I'm going to tell you something. Rather than us even, why don't you go where you want to go in terms of the topics? Because you've been on target so many times.
I thought about challenging Bannon to a duel.
Seriously,
an old-fashioned duel?
Well, there's two ways we could do it. I mean, I would love to see a groundswell of Twitters, and although Twitter is censoring pro-Trump people.
Sure.
And there's a new hashtag now, #Google Gestapo. Google just deprived Alex Jones of $3.5 million in ad revenue through its ad roll. They did this without due process. They simply labeled Alex Jones fake news. They could label you fake news tomorrow, and you're dead. Yeah. At the same time, Google unlisted Natural News.
Yep.
Natural News was digitally assassinated. At the same time, you have legions of trolls who are labeling people like you and me as spammers. Yep. So that people who are making comments, sound reasonable comments at Rolling Stone and Mother Jones and other places, they're being labeled spammers by 100 people whose job is to click the button that says report abuse on a person who's saying something perfectly reasonable. And because Mother Jones and all these people are lazy and they're just relying on the number of clicks, never mind where they came from, all of the activists that are loyal to Donald Trump are being labeled as spammers and are disappearing.
That's right.
There is a digital holocaust going on in America today against Donald Trump supporters.
And if I could be mistaken, this could be operator error on my part, but I was looking for something that had something to do with you. I had found it, and I didn't bookmark it, but this was a digital file. When I went to search for it, I did a search on Google. Using Google, it came up nothing. And I don't have my notes right here. They're in my office, but I used a couple of other search engines. I finally found the file I was looking for. It was something you had published 18 months ago. Well, in looking at this, they had Google had delisted the archive of that document, and this is what they're doing. This is what they did in Natural News. The same thing.
Yes.
They did this. So
yes. There is a digital pogrom going on.
Right. And this is how I believe this is one aspect or one tactic they're using to silence us. or to make us.
Oh, I completely agree, and I have. It turns out that Google's lawyer is Brendan Sullivan. This is Brendan. I am not a potted plant Sullivan, guy that defended Oliver North. And I have had
John
a couple of
Caffey.
emails. I've sent Brendan Sullivan a couple of emails, and I've said, you're complicit in this digital holocaust. And he hasn't responded. I've reached out to the Washington Post reporter that's covering Google, and I believe that Jeff Sessions should immediately order a RICO, a racketeering investigation into Eric Schmidt and Google and all of its assigns, which includes AdRoll and YouTube, as well as Facebook and Twitter. We need an investigation that demands full disclosure of who is being censored and how. There is, in fact, no quality control. These people are like the Wild West. They're a law unto themselves. And unfortunately, the people they most want to silence are us.
Yep.
And I don't think that Donald Trump has people around him that are sophisticated enough to really understand what's being done. Historically, the Silicon Valley people have always been Democrats. They've always been pro-Clinton. So Trump does not have he doesn't have a bench in this area. And he's not really aware of how much damage is being done to his supporters by extrajudicial censorship and delisting and so forth.
Well, we have a lot of insiders at play here. You've got, PayPal has blocked, and this is old news, WikiLeaks funding.
Well, that was the first one. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you got what, Pierre Odemeyer, who's the founder of eBay and PayPal, involved in, he's a key figure in who determines what allowable opinion is. The Democracy Fund, Pierre, Intercept founder. All of these people, I'm just looking at this.
And Robert, I got a question, if I can.
Go ahead.
Before we get too far away from what you said about Natural News and InfoWars and Google Gestapo. One of the things that was interesting about this story is Mike Adams from Natural News published a story about how he was offered $50,000 to throw Jones under the bus publicly, and if he didn't do so, he was going to be censored and targeted
himself.
As we saw him, as they carried out, and he published that right away and explained to everybody what was going on, and then they turn around, they cut the ad revenue for Jones, and then they, as you said, digitally annihilated or erased, Natural News in their web archives. Does he have a legal? Is there a legal remedy here for him to take? Especially with the threat?
I think there is. Now, I'm not a lawyer, but I think there is a legal remedy. And one of the things that I find really appealing about this is we could go after them on racketeering charges, okay, which is a really big step up. And Jeff Sessions is the perfect attorney general to go after Google and Eric Schmidt specifically. Eric Schmidt is the architect of this. I've heard Schmidt talking about this for years now. And we have the added problem that the mainstream media is producing fake news, but of course Google is not going to censor them. It's not going to delist Crap News Network. So it's absolutely fascinating demonstration of digital power that is outside the law. Now, there's some things that we, the people, can do. For example, I personally use DuckDuckGo.
Right.
DuckDuckGo not only protects your privacy, they won't delist you. So DuckDuckGo for me is an alternative to Google. I stopped using Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn long ago. And I was just talking to my virtual chief technology officer, Arnold. Stephen Arnold is one of the most brilliant people on the planet. ArnoldIT.com. You can subscribe to his stuff. But I was asking him about, can we replace Google, Facebook, and Twitter tomorrow? And he said, yes, we can. There are alternatives. And these alternatives exist. And I'm also looking at Steemit, and an alert reader came into me. I'm getting some really good emails, by the way. people are sending me in things. For example, I didn't know this, but congressional districts are drawn or apportioned based on how many people are there, including the illegal aliens and non-citizens. I didn't know that. So I'm changing the Electoral Reform Act to have congressional districts drawn on the basis only of citizens who are eligible to vote.
There you go.
It's quite astonishing that we're at a point now where every institution in America that is supposed to be providing us with truthful information has failed or been captured. The universities, academia has been captured. The newspapers have been captured. The radio and TV stations have been captured. The government lies about unemployment and inflation and toxins and health hazards and everything. It's almost as if we, the people, are wandering into a wilderness where we're going to have to reinvent how we determine what the truth is. This is quite fascinating. I'm not going to agonize over whether Donald Trump outgrows Steve Bannon, but I am very concerned that if he doesn't do something very serious, and part of this is holistic, okay? I don't think Trump, because Bannon refuses to face reality, I don't think Trump has a clear understanding of the fact that he's under attack from three sides and he has 2 weeks in which to make a decisive move. And that's frustrating.
Why do you say 2 weeks?
Because historically, my first graduate thesis was on revolution, predicting all aspects of revolution, including the timing. Okay? We were supposed to have a hard winter. The Farmer's Almanac said we were going to have more snow than usual. And I don't know if that's still going to happen in March or not. But the bottom line here is that historically, the revolution begins when it starts getting warm.
Right.
And is going to stay warm, where people can be out at night. Okay? So my best guess, looking at my calendar, my best guess is that the new Berkeleys are going to start on the 18th and 19th of March, and no later than the 25th and 26th of March. And they're going to culminate in 3 million people being bused to Washington, D.C. on May Day to trash the city. That's my personal speculative assessment.
Wow.
I personally think Donald Trump and the FBI should be paying attention to this. And oh, by the way, NSA, which listens to all of the politicians' phone calls and reads all of their emails, NSA has never provided good support to the FBI. I'm quite certain that NSA has every phone call that Eric Schmidt has made in organizing this Google Gestapo, hashtag Google Gestapo. I'm quite certain that NSA has every phone call George Soros has made in planning a violent American spring. But NSA is part of the forces arrayed against Donald Trump. Now, I do want to mention to your listeners that the president has the authority to close NSA down tomorrow.
Absolutely.
It does not have a legislative charter. The humane way to do it is to simply turn out the lights and order everybody to go home with full salary while we sort this all out in the next 90 days. But the bottom line for me is that closing down NSA and closing down CIA, they're both worthless in terms of actually running the country. That doesn't do anything other than it's like the Dutch kid with the thumb in the dike. You've got to have the Electoral Reform Act so that Donald Trump can create a movement that includes not only the white people that Steve Bannon is so close to, but the people of color that Cynthia McKinney can recruit. I mean, Cynthia and I talk daily, and she's in Asia right now, but we Skype and we email and we're in close communications, and I think she's one of America's heroes. She and I have talked about how the Clintons put more black people in jail than there were slaves at the beginning of the Civil War. And Cynthia McKinney has the power, with Donald Trump's help, to go out and recruit the people of color and bring together the people of color, the white people, the Latinos, and all others, and create a Donald Trump liberty and freedom and democracy movement that can swamp the two-party tyranny, which only represents 30% of the voters.
That's
So
right.
I'm very frustrated because I see all of this so clearly, but I got no one to talk to except you guys.
Well, and just a tens of thousands of our closest friends, but I'll tell you something.
All of whom have sent me email.
No, I think you're right on the money, and you mentioned the NSA, the folks,
And before
tailored access operations.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but before Obama left office, one of the last major things he did was expand
Yeah.
the surveillance powers to allow, I think it was 16 or 17 branches
Yes.
of government, the information, unfiltered information from the NSA. So the FBI could request it and get it without, the NSA going through it and only targeting out the person that they're looking for in those persons' conversations.
Right.
So there are, Obama did expand that, which was a bad move.
That's a very important observation. But let me give you another one. I had lunch with William Binney, who is my choice for running what's left of NSA after we close it down. Binney says that the intelligence community is basically lying. No, he didn't say they're lying, but he said the intelligence community is presenting to Jeff Sessions and the president so-called routine authorizations for continuing their activities.
Robert, hold that
Gotta
thought.
stop you right there, boy. That's a
We're going to pick up there where we left off, what the
Yeah.
NSA is doing.
wow.
In terms of with Trump and Sessions. We're up against a break. Folks, you're listening to the Hagman and Hagman Report. Our guest right now is Robert David Steele. His website, robertdavidsteele.com.
Give us
He's
3
making
minutes,
a
we'll be back.
lot of waves in the media in the last few weeks with a lot of important information. And he'll be right back with us for our final segment after these short messages. Don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Visit HagmanReport.com for the news and articles that matter most. Stay tuned. We will be right back. You may never look at your city, town, or its people the same way ever again. Stained by Blood, a murder investigation based upon a true story by private investigator Douglas J. Hagman. Using the character Mark Stiles, Hagman takes you on a journey behind the scenes where the homicide becomes secondary to an underworld of satanic ritual abuse, child abduction, and even mind-controlled experimentation. A world dismissed as conspiracy by those who want to keep its secrets hidden, exposing the dangers, denials, and deceptions. For 5 years, a brutal killer remained on the loose, free to kill again. As Mark struggles to navigate the maze of bizarre twists and untangle a web of deeply hidden secrets kept by some of the most powerful and influential people in his community and beyond. Stained by Blood. Order your copy of this engaging novel today at HagmanandHagman.com and click on the link. Stained by Blood.
In these uncertain times, it makes sense to have a sustainable backup method to cook food and boil water. If your current plan includes using a fuel-burning stove or cooking over an open fire, then there's a much better way. The Minuteman Rocket Stove is a biomass-burning cooking stove that only requires small quantities of sticks and twigs for fuel. The Minuteman Stove is easy to use, smokeless, portable, powerful, and sustainable. For the finest in survival cooking stoves and fire starters made right here in the USA, go to MinutemanStove.com. That's MinutemanStove.com.
For investors, timberland has become the symbol of safety. Global tropical timber demand continues to surge as the world's population increases. The need for managed, sustainable timber production forests has never been greater. When stock markets crash, trees keep growing. Direct ownership of fully managed tropical timberland acreage is now available to accredited investors. Prime, valuable hardwood groves close to the beautiful Costa Rican border generate and maintain superior long-term wealth. Consider visiting our forest plantations. Qualified accredited investors should go to PreciousTimberProfits.com or dial 855-888-6288 for more information. Call 855-888-6288 or visit PreciousTimberProfits.com. This announcement does not constitute either an offer to sell securities or a solicitation of an offer to purchase. Offering made by prospectus only. 855-888-6288, PreciousTimberProfits.com. PreciousTimberProfits.com.
Hagman and Hagman Report on the Global Star Radio Network. Please stand by. Doug and Joe will be right back.
The Hagman and Hagman Report. Folks, we have got a tremendous guest, Robert David Steele. This guy knows what he's talking about. Listen carefully to him. Extremely intelligent, extremely on the money with respect to the mapping the human domain. Remember that old Jade Helm term, but he knows where things are, where the bodies are buried. Indeed, former CIA officer. I may have gotten that wrong. Former CIA.
Yeah, that works. That works.
That works? All right.
Yeah, that works. Just not agent. Agents commit treason, officers recruit them.
There you go. All right. Again, you got to listen to this, man. RobertDavidSteele.com is his website. And also, his Kindle shorts, very well worth twice as much as you pay for them. They're free as well. But I do like to support the work of people who put the work into it. Before we get back to Robert David Steele, I just want to direct folks, Precious Timber, PreciousTimber.com. They are sponsors of ours. They are good friends of ours. Alex Wilson is a good friend of ours. He's got a number of different initiatives for people, whether they're investment or even bug out type of initiatives, property, anything you can think of. Go to PreciousTimber.com. One of the things that he does have for accredited investors is, of course, investing in coconuts. And it might sound like a ridiculous thing, but believe it or not, coconuts have got a long-term 15% return on average on investment. That's not a claim, but that's a potential. Okay, it's a triple bottom line opportunity. There you can go to profitsandcoconuts.com, but visit PreciousTimber.com. Look up what Alex Wilson is doing. We've had him on our program before. He's a great guy. He does a lot of work for not just people, but entire countries. And we're talking about Nicaragua and the people there. But you'll get a lot of benefit from his initiatives. That's Alex Wilson, PreciousTimber.com. If you're interested in putting if you're interested in your long-term investments, profitsandcoconuts.com there. Now, I have to say this, because if I don't, somebody's going to spank me. You ready? Listen. This announcement does not constitute either an offer to sell securities or a solicitation of an offer to purchase. Offering made by prospectus only. I can't do that in my radio voice, but you got it. So there you go. Joe.
Excuse me. We're talking with Robert David Steele from RobertDavidSteele.com. Excuse me. Just before the break, we were talking about the NSA, and you were getting into a story.
Yeah,
about...
I got to tell you, Robert, I gave my regrets to William Binney. I couldn't make lunch that day. No one's laughing.
No, that went over my head.
All right.
Well, I think you should have him on as a guest, because he's one of the men I admire most. He's a senior executive officer, like a flag, or like an admiral or a general in civilian terms.
Yep.
He actually created what was good about NSA.
Right.
And it was also very respectful of American privacy. And he's gone on to recreate that outside of NSA. If I were God, I would close NSA down after letting William Binney first pick out the 30% he wants to keep. And I'd move the 30% over to CIA, which should be restored. The DCI, the Director of Central Intelligence, should be restored. We need to get rid of the Office of the Director of Intelligence. That's just 1,000 people wasting taxpayer money. And then I would close NSA. But right now, the priority right now is for Trump and Sessions to refuse to sign any more authorities for NSA or CIA. Period. Cut them off.
Okay. All right.
And they need to get Binney in there and talk to him. And of course, they need to talk to me too. Binney's the expert on NSA. I'm the expert on CIA.
By the way, CIA, friend or foe to President Donald Trump right now?
Well, again, there's no such thing as a monolithic CIA. I mean, your listeners can search for 7 CIAs on the record. And that's me talking about the 7 CIAs. What you really have at CIA is perhaps 30 traitors who believe that they know best and that they can do anything they wish because they are above the law. There are also 30 traitors at NSA and 30 traitors at the FBI. And this is why counterintelligence was one of the 4 things that is in my memo for Trump. that he needs to address. And this is what frustrates me. I mean, Donald Trump is a very smart man, and I'm told he's very personable. But he has a staff that is just so myopic and incapable. And General McMaster was a mistake. There are 10 high-level threats to humanity. And Donald Trump does not need a national security advisor, particularly one in uniform who is about to be retired by the Chief of Staff of the Army. What he needs is someone who can do strategy. And strategy means doing all 10 high-level threats to humanity, 9 of which are not military. And they include poverty and crime and...
But didn't McMaster expose the criminality in Vietnam through a recent book?
Well, it's not so recent, and I think he's overrated. But what also troubles me is McMaster swore loyalty to Hillary Clinton and was a never-Trumper.
Okay, that's right.
Period.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm not sure anyone told Trump that. Now, I have no problem with McMaster. I'm sure he can be saved, but the bottom line is I'm absolutely certain he cannot recite from memory the 10 high-level threats to humanity, which I can, and I will if you'll give me a chance, but I'm not going to push it on you.
Floor is yours, brother.
Well,
I got to hear this.
These 10 high-level threats were identified by Lieutenant General Brent Scowcroft, one of the greatest national security advisors we've ever had, and the members of the high-level panel. And they are in this order: poverty, infectious disease, environmental degradation, including losing our groundwater for our crops, interstate conflict, civil war, which we have now in the United States, genocide, other atrocities, including pedophilia and killing kids when you're done with them. And then you get to proliferation, terrorism, and transnational crime. 9 of those threats are not military. And 8 of those threats are completely ignored by the CIA and NSA and everybody else. They only focus on interstate conflict and terrorism. And by the way, we're creating the terrorists. The United States government under Obama created ISIS. It armed ISIS and it trained ISIS. The Saudis provided the money. So these are facts that the mainstream media is not going to report.
What's your opinion? And thank you for those 10 threats to humanity. And folks,
and to America.
What's that?
And to America.
Right.
50% of America is below the poverty line.
I didn't realize it was 50%.
It's huge. And all those jobs Obama created, those were part-time jobs with no benefits.
Right.
Okay. We are all hurting. The average unemployment rate is 23%. The unemployment rate in my demographic, old guys, is 40%. The demographic in my really small, the unemployment rate in my really small demographic, old guys, former spies who tell the truth, is 100%. Okay.
Wow.
Single moms, people of color, 40% unemployment. The mainstream media is a complete fraud.
Right.
And I am very upset when Senator McCain, who I believe is going senile, when Senator McCain says that a free press matters, he's right. When he says that we have a free press in America, he's delusional to the point of being insane. Similarly, when James Baker gets on CNN and says we have a functioning democracy,
yeah,
he is actively lying to the American public. We don't have a functioning democracy. We have a two-party tyranny that lives on 30% of the base and works for Wall Street, not Main Street.
All right. And yeah, you're 100% right. Now, we've gotten pages of emails wanting you to address Pedogate, the larger aspects of that, as you referenced with.
I'm glad to.
Greg Hunter. But I don't want, Robert, I'm going to tell you something. We've only got about 20 minutes left, if that, and I don't want to waste any precious time. So if you've got something more that you would like to address, I want you to make that decision. But in absent of that, I got a bunch of people.
Let's move on to pedophilia, because that's the edge. Let me make 2 comments about pedophilia. The first is that because the mainstream media and the FBI have been so irresponsible about not covering pedophilia, now what you have is a vigilante mob. And this vigilante mob is making mistakes. I know, for example, a very talented painter and author named Nora Maccabee. she is being tarred, and her father, who deals with orphans in Haiti, are being tarred as being part of this pedophilia network. To the best of my knowledge, they are not. They live in the same neighborhood as Comet Pizza, or whatever it's called.
Right.
And there are pictures of her with the pedophile that is the alleged pedophile that runs Comet Pizza. So, as an intelligence professional, I really have been promoting citizen intelligence Minutemen for the last 30 years. But the job comes with a responsibility. And right now what we have is a social media mob. So let me say straight up, people, if you trust me at all, stop picking on Nora and her dad. Okay? Now, the second thing that I'll say is that the FBI has started to work the pedophilia target. And there are over 30 senior politicians in Washington who are on the list, and they know they're on the list. I don't know what Trump's plan is, but I think he will probably have 2 or 3 high-profile arrests in the next couple of weeks. And the rest are basically going to be told, you troubled me any longer, and you'll be added to the arrest list. Now, I really want to stress truth and reconciliation, okay? I have had pushback. Not a lot, maybe 5 very strong emails from your listeners who have said pedophiles should be dropped into the ocean with a millstone around their neck.
Right.
Okay. In fact, Greg Hunter said that on USA Watchdog.
Mm-hmm.
Let me explain why truth and reconciliation matters. If you capture a pedophile and you have a truth and reconciliation program in place, they will give up all the other pedophiles. Okay?
Right.
So you can clean out the whole nest. If you don't have a truth and reconciliation program, then they're going to clam up and you're only going to get one pedophile. What matters here is getting the truth on the table and clearing them all out. All right?
Right.
Now, you can certainly go back later and in selective cases decide that somebody is such a threat to society they need to be put away. But by and large, educating the public is much more important than punishing the individual. Okay? Educating the public, getting the truth on the table, all right? What people don't understand, and this is the last veil, what people don't understand is that pedophilia is common. And law enforcement, including particularly the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department and the New York Police Department and the Washington, D.C. Police Department, they have all been trained, ordered, and made to ignore pedophilia. Okay? Law enforcement is part of the problem because they have been told by the politicians, including the mayors and governors of every state across America, do not investigate pedophiles. The same thing happens in the United Kingdom. Okay? The Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, one of the past prime ministers, is now a proven pedophile. He was protected and covered up for decades, and that's why I think Reince Priebus has got to go. Because Priebus covered up for Denny Hassert and everybody else.
That's true.
Priebus is part of the problem.
Yeah. Okay.
And for those who don't know, Denny Hassert is a convicted child rapist. I don't know what exactly he was convicted for, but he was a former Speaker of the House for
Extortion
8
or
years.
I believe. Well, pedophilia, but I think in addition to that, extortion, right? Robert.
Yeah, and he's on record for paying for the silence of many of his victims. And
Right.
recently there was an article where because he was arrested, he actually stated he wanted the money he paid to the family back,
Yeah.
which is just crazy. But yeah, I mean,
No
this is
refunds,
like
right?
you said. Unfortunately, it's common, specifically in places of power. And if you look, we've covered some statistics here recently, where it covers the number of pedophilia arrests since Trump has been in office. And I guess it was somewhere around 1,500. And I know there was another series of arrests this week, but apparently that's more than they, or at least in the public eye, that's more than what they've seen in years past. So I don't know if there is a movement that is shifting to bring these men to justice. But one thing that I agree with you on is the truth is just as, if not more important. Because what's the value of getting one pedophile off the street when you could get networks of these people off the street?
Exactly.
you know,
And let me point out for your listeners that the difference between Obama and Trump is that Obama was part of the deep state.
Right.
That's why George Soros wasn't spending $48 million to put people into the streets against Obama. Obama won with 26% of the eligible voters. Trump won with 27%. But the difference between the two of them is that Trump is an unshackled wild card, and Obama was part of the deal. Okay? And so what troubles me is that Donald Trump came into office not realizing that every single person in power across the financial, the media, and the political worlds was going to do everything in their power to destroy his presidency. I mean, I'm still shocked by the attempt to flip the Electoral College. That was treason, plain and simple. So I'm really concerned that Trump is being buffered by Steve Bannon. He's being misled by Steve Bannon. And I have nothing against Bannon, but I want Trump to survive and prosper. And on his present course, I think Steve Bannon is taking him over the cliff and to his death.
Okay. And Priebus too, as well. I mean, he's being insulated.
And O'Shannon in the Office of Presidential Personnel, Boner's Revenge, we call him. Basically, Dick Cheney.
Right.
Dick Cheney is playing Trump for a chump.
Interesting.
I really want your listeners to take a look at my book review. I write summary book reviews, and I've reviewed a book called Vice: Dick Cheney and the Hijacking of the American Presidency. He played George Bush like a fiddle. I mean, he would countermand Bush's orders, and nobody would stand up to Cheney. Colin Powell and George Tenet both knew that Dick Cheney was telling 935 lies, and they wouldn't stand up to him. They both prostituted their office, and they betrayed the American public in doing so. I know in the case of Tenet, he doesn't care. In the case of Colin Powell, I'm quite sure he regrets that as his darkest, lowest moment in his ethical life.
Judging from what I've heard, that's about right. Yeah.
And I would see, again, with Truth and Reconciliation, I would take Colin Powell back in a heartbeat. He's a great man, and he still has much to offer America. But the bottom line here is that Dick Cheney is playing Trump for a chump, and people are being salted into the government. And Trump is, on the one hand, trying to control who Mattis hires and who Tillerson hires and so on. He's also shutting out Tillerson and Mattis from decisions. But at the same time, he's not controlling them. Pence and Mattis and Tillerson are all saying things overseas that are completely opposite what Trump said on the campaign trail. NATO being one example. I think we should pull out of NATO. We should close all of our bases in Europe. As long as our military is based in Korea and Germany and Japan, it's their military, not ours. Okay? So
yeah,
I think
I'm getting a little funny feeling about Pence. You had mentioned that before, and since you mentioned it when you were on initially, I've been following
I don't know. I mean, I like the way he looks and talks and walks, but I'm getting the sense that Pence is the guy that will ultimately betray Donald Trump, because Pence and Priebus have the power to go to Congress and say Trump is being erratic, he's incapacitated, we need to kick in the 25th Amendment or whatever it is, and then Paul Ryan, who is no friend of Trump's, will declare him incapacitated and promote Pence, and then, God help us, here comes Jeb Bush, or worse, Elizabeth Warren. Now, I want to give Pence the benefit of the doubt, but you need to know that one of the reasons Flynn got fired was because Pence's best friend was on the pedophile list.
There you go. That's
Flynn was looking up.
Yeah, please tell our listeners about that.
All I know, I do have a person that calls me that was privy to this. He says that there was a list from Amsterdam of the top pedophiles in the United States of America, the top elite pedophiles, and Flynn got his hands on it. And I don't know if Flynn knew this, but some of the very, very top leaders in Russia are pedophiles. Okay? If you ever see a bare-chested Russian leader, look for a young boy nearby. So we have some issues in our international relations. But the bottom line here is that Flynn did not tell Pence because Pence had a close personal friend engaged in that. I don't think Flynn. I don't think Flynn was actually fired for talking to the Russians or for disrespecting Pence. I think he was fired because the Never Trumpers wanted to put their own spy in the White House, and that's McMaster. McMaster is loyal to the Never Trumpers.
Interesting. Very interesting. And folks, I would urge everybody listening to this to also listen to Robert David Steele's interview with Greg Hunter. Anytime this guy's on anywhere on air, listen to what he's got to say, because he's a valuable asset of intelligence. Now, you said something earlier, and I wanted to get back to this before we end here. We only got about 8 minutes. You had written an article about illegals in the voting process.
Well, that was Greg Phillips. If your listeners go to Phi Beta Iota and just type in Greg with 2 G's, if they just type in Greg with 2 G's at phibetaiota.net, they can also look up on any search engine Greg Phillips with 2 G's and 3 million illegal votes. So if later when you post this on YouTube, you can probably show the article.
Right.
Greg Phillips is a very sophisticated leader of a corporation that has done some extremely good work in software and hardware. And he has the data to back up the assertion by Donald Trump with analytics, algorithms, and hundreds of millions of data points. He's proven it. There were 3 million illegal votes, period.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know.
There it is.
I'll tell you something. People ask me, how do you know so much? And I say, I don't know so much. I just know who I trust. So I collect minds. And Greg Phillips is one of the people that I trust. So if you look up Greg Phillips, 3 million illegal votes, or if you just look up 3 million illegal votes, source equals Phi Beta Iota, you'll get right to it.
Yep.
Okay.
We got it right here.
This is what frustrates me. This is why I want a Trump channel, and this is why I want an open source agency. I mean, one of the things that Bannon is making a huge mistake on in blocking me from talking to Donald Trump is, even if Donald Trump only takes one of my 9 points or 2, he's going to be stronger than he was before. So Bannon is basically killing 8 separate ideas because he doesn't want Cynthia McKinney and Dennis Kucinich sharing Donald Trump's ear.
Right.
In my view, that is a very short-sighted, dangerous misservice to the president. I support Donald Trump. He's our legitimate president, but he's also a fringe president. We need to build him out. We need to bring in the Sandinistas. We need to bring in the people of color. We need to bring in the Latinos. And we need to make Donald Trump bulletproof to the point that he can tell Paul Ryan what to do.
Yeah. Ryan, by the way, making news riding on horseback on the border there. Any thoughts on that whole border issue?
Was he bare-chested?
No, I knew you were going to ask
Did you
that.
catch that innuendo?
I did. Yeah. It's been a weird night. Any thoughts on the border issue, or is this,
Well, again, I'm Latino. And one of the things I like to point out to Americans who think that all Latinos are brown and don't speak English is Latinos come in all colors. White, black, brown, red. We even have yellow Latinos because there's a lot of Japanese blood in Peru. And we also have our share of neo-Nazi Latinos. They're all in Argentina. Okay? So it's a great population. It's a culture, not a race. People need to remember that we stole most of the land that the Latinos are occupying today from Mexico. We created a war with Mexico on false pretenses, and everything below the Guadalupe Hidalgo line was stolen from Mexico. Now, I'll just end with a little anecdote. One of my friends in customs asked his grandfather or great-grandfather, he said one day about 10 years ago, he told me the story about a year ago, he said, "When did you emigrate?" And he said, "I didn't emigrate, they moved the border on me."
Okay.
Okay? So I would beg of my American citizen colleagues a little understanding of history. Now, all of the Latinos that I know are law-abiding Latinos who believe that illegals should be kicked out of the country. There is no disagreement on this. They also understand Donald Trump. I mean, Latinos have this concept of machismo, and it's often wrongfully translated as manliness. It actually means studliness and bluster and posturing and whatever. I mean, Donald Trump is the ultimate Latino in whiteface, okay? They understand him. They get Donald Trump. So for me, you don't actually need a wall. President Eisenhower solved the problem by telling every business that if they hired a Latino, they would be put out of business if they hired someone who was an illegal.
Know your
He
history.
enforced
people.
the law.
Know your history.
Today, this Verify, less than 10% of people who are hired are run through the Verify system.
That's
If
right.
you had 100% of the Verify system in use, not only by employers, but by landlords, we would not have an illegal problem. Then, of course, you have all of the illegals that Barack Obama imported at taxpayer expense. I mean, he was running whole plane loads of Syrians into airports across America and letting them loose.
Yep.
Okay, with bus fare.
Yep.
He was also using taxpayer money to pay Vermont and other places. It's become, resettling illegal refugees has become a cash flow project for nonprofits that are created to make money. Okay, and there's nothing nonprofit about a nonprofit. What it really is lots of really big salaries for the people that are part of it, and very little benefit for the public. And I think we should probably say, as we move toward ending, that Donald Trump's tax reform is a fraud.
How so?
It's Goldman Sachs' wet dream.
Okay, that's an interesting.
We only got about a
statement.
minute left.
Yeah. Wow. I wish we would.
Well, I'll be back on the 3rd of March.
Okay.
And if Steve Bannon accepts my challenge to a duel, he'll be with you.
All right. Yeah, we'll make room for that, and I will personally overnight the glove.
But let me end with the tax issue. Is we need an automated payment transaction tax that ends all income taxes, and it shifts the burden to Wall Street, because Wall Street historically has never paid taxes on anything. If you had a tiny fractional transaction tax on every Wall Street currency and stock transaction, it would double fund the government and end the need for any American citizen to pay income tax.
Okay, I agree with that part of your statement.
I wouldn't know how the original initial tax was set up. It was a tax on capital gains and such, rather than an individual income tax to begin with. So, moving back toward that model where you tax corporations for profits that they make from buying and selling other corporations in their own stock is very smart.
The whole system is hosed. Let me just end by encouraging your listeners to go find Memo for Trump. It's a tiny URL, Memo for Trump, with 4 being a number. And let's see if we can't send our prayers and our cosmic thought waves toward Donald Trump. He needs to get past Steve Bannon's blindness.
We'll put it in the program description. Robert David Steele, as always, phenomenal job. We will talk with you again. You're coming back. God bless you. Stay safe, my brother.
Well, God bless you. You got me started on this roller coaster.
And we're going to keep you riding. Just stay buckled in. All right, brother. That'll do it for us tonight, folks. Have a great evening.
Thank you for tuning in tonight's broadcast of the Hagman and Hagman Report on the Global Star Radio Network. You can join Doug and Joe nightly from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as they continue to bring you the truth and keep you up to date with the latest breaking news as we enter the close of the age. The Hagman and Hagman Report has been a presentation of the Global Star Radio Network. Thank you for joining us.